This is day 357 of the Daily Bread Bible Study, Tuesday, December 22nd, 2020, focusing on 1 John, all 5 chapters. Should note that the book of 1 John, it feels very similar to the Gospel of John, and some claim that is written around the time of the Gospel of John, around 100 AD. So this would be long time after Jesus has died. They're around 33 AD, and his crucifixion, I should say, and resurrection. This is also 30 years after the destruction of the second Jewish temple by the Romans there in 70 AD. So a lot has happened, and the persecutions of the church are hot and heavy at this time if it's written around 100 AD. Now, we should also note, too, that the themes are very much connected with Gospel of John, so that's why we attribute it to the writer of the Gospel of John. There in John chapter 4, verse 18, we hear some encouraging words that encapsulate the idea of the first letter of John. It says this: "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not reached perfection in love. We love because he first loved us." So in 1 John chapter 1, we hear, "We declare to you what was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have looked at and touched with our hands concerning the word of life." The writer, who we will call John, gives words I like to use in confession liturgy here in verse 8 of chapter 1. "If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sin, he who is faithful and just will forgive our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness." So in 1 John chapter 2, subtly different than the views like Peter and James, the atoning sacrifice of Jesus carries more value than the perfection under the law. This is because a perfected love of God includes reverence of God's instruction. So it's not like he's denying the law of God here. John invites people to abide in Jesus and walk in light. Again, themes that come up in the Gospel of John. We then hear that these words are for children and fathers alike, both young and old. The writer believes the time is near and proclaims that, quote, in chapter 2, verse 18, "Many antichrists have come." There are many antichrists, not just one, so it's kind of strange. But the antichrist here is defined in verse 22 as, quote, "the one who denies the Father and the Son." Even more specifically, in the second letter of John, it clarifies that this denial is of the coming of Christ. In 2 John chapter 1, verse 7, it gives us more insight to this Antichrist by saying, "Many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. Any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist." So maybe it's in connection with being agents of Satan or the devil, or maybe it is anybody who acts in a way that denies Jesus. Well, I'm uncertain about the specifics of this denial, but I assume it's based more on the second coming. Now, 1 John chapter 4 makes it seem like it could also be the initial coming of the Messiah, and if it is such, then that deals more along the lines of the Jews of their day and time who tend to deny that Jesus came as the Messiah at all. But anyways, the denial of the coming of Jesus is connected as the message that has been heard from the beginning, the one that is living within those who abide in Jesus' love. So moving on to 1 John chapter 3, in verse 1, "See what the love the Father has given us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know him. So there is also an indication that a transformation has not yet occurred, saying in verse 2, when he is revealed, we will be like him, for we will see him as he is. So there'll be a transformation and a revealing. And then in 1 John 3, verse 10, we hear that there is a distinction of, quote, the children of God and the children of the devil, and also a confirmation that, quote, the world hates you. So this is the idea just in the Gospel of John, that Christ came into the world, but the world did not know him, and yet the world kind of stood against what Jesus' kingdom he was bringing, this spiritual kingdom from heaven, was about. So even despite this opposition, Christians will obey his commands and abide in his love. So moving on to chapter 4, verse 1. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know that the Spirit is of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. And every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, of which you have heard that is coming, and now it is already in the world. So the questions of timing around the Antichrist is that the Antichrist is there, and the Antichrist will do what the Antichrist does, which is deny Jesus and the coming of Jesus. So this distinction of those who are with God can be found in the type of love that they manifest. In 1 John 4:7, Beloved, let us love one another, because love is from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love. God's love was revealed among us in this way. God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. In this is love, not that we have loved God, but that he has loved us and sent his Son to be an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Beloved, since God loved us so much, we ought to love one another. So there's a lot said there, but a lot of that's very similar to the Gospel of John and its theology. Moving on to 1 John chapter 5, the closing chapter for today. We see another connection between love and commandments given here in verse 2. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and obey his commandments. For the love of God is this, that we obey his commandments. And his commandments are not burdensome, and whatever is born of God conquers the world. And this is the victory that conquers the world, our faith. So again, all of these theological concepts of faith and love and the commandments of God, the law, all of these are interconnected. And depending upon what theology you have, it kind of shakes out a little differently. Now, I will close in saying this. All of this is enacted by the Spirit of God, the gift of Jesus, and effective as we abide in Jesus. This Spirit gives the Son, and also then therefore gives us life. Followers are again encouraged to pray for whatever they need, and that is exactly what we are called to do. So may you be able to pray in the midst of your sufferings. May you pray as you are in this world, but also of the Spirit and born in the Spirit. And may you abide in Jesus in that love that he gives to us. Look forward to talking more about the epistles next time.